Well, the U.S. is suspending talks with Russia over a new ceasefire in Syria, a development that is also interesting because of the timing. Nearly a year ago to the day, Russia began its bombing campaign in Syria to bolster the Assad regime. Days after that campaign started, President Obama famously said this.
An attempt by Russia and Iran to prop up Assad and try to pacify the population is just going to get them stuck in a quagmire, and it won't work.
Well, now negotiations to restart a ceasefire as well as any coordination with Russia and Syria has come to a complete and total halt. The State Department says this.
It is a grim anniversary since 1 year since they began supporting the Assad regime in earnest with airstrikes. It is hard not to assess that they have succeeded in bolstering the regime.
All this comes as Russia is moving more weapons into Syria. Let's talk about it all with Peter Doran, Vice President of Research at the Center for European Policy Analysis. He's an expert on Russia and Ukraine. I want to focus, Peter, on some of the breaking news about what Russia is doing as far as moving weapons into Syria. Plainly speaking, they're moving an anti-missile system into Syria for the very first time. It's the first time they've deployed this anti-missile system outside their own border. Why are they doing that?
Well, this clearly represents a significant escalation of the fighting in Syria. By deploying this particular system to Syria, Russia is attempting to establish a military bubble in Syria, a bubble that will make it very difficult for the United States to project air power into the region. It shows that Russia is anticipating the next step in a possible U.S. military response after the breakdown in negotiations. So Russia is raising the stakes and making the very dangerous situation in Syria all the more so.
And just to point out to our viewers, the only powers that have air power inside Syria is the Assad regime and Russia, not who they're fighting on the ground. The only other air power in the region is really us that could be flying into Syria. So is that who the anti-missile defense system is really there to deter?
It's very likely. ISIS does not have an air force, and when negotiations over peace break down, the Russians have clearly calculated that a military option by the United States could be in the cards, and so they've deployed this very sophisticated, cutting-edge air defense system in order to simply demonstrate that if the United States tries to use its air power, there could be significant costs. This is an attempt to run off a potential military intervention with air power by the United States.
Have we lost all leverage in Syria?
Well, we're running out of options. This is the tail end of an 8-year strategy on the part of the White House to negotiate with Russia, to offer Vladimir Putin a lot of options in the hopes that Russia would then return the favor. That strategy, as we're seeing in Syria, is breaking down. With the breakdown of the negotiations, the White House has lost a very big gamble. That gamble was that Russia would do its part to help ease the humanitarian suffering in Syria, and that has simply not happened. So with the end of these bilateral talks to create a ceasefire, essentially what the White House is saying is mission not accomplished in protecting civilians in Syria.
So what's next, Peter?
Well, we're going to have an option for the White House and certainly for the next president. I think there are a lot of very powerful lessons that can be drawn from the failure of U.S.-Russian relations over the last 8 years. At a minimum, it's very obvious that the Russians will only respond when you negotiate from a position of strength, and there are many non-military options on the table to demonstrate American resolve and seriousness in pushing back against what has become very dangerous behavior on the part of Russia.
And where it goes from here is a big question. Peter, great to have your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much.